Welcome to the 199 podcast with HVS. My co-host today is Josh Barnett, one of the owners of 199, a retro college apparel company. I'm Aaron Meyer. On today's episode, we're going to do an HVS Classic, Arkansas and Kentucky, 1995 SEC Championship. Billy Packer knows what time it is.
Nice move by Steve Fisher here. Turn it into the 19-9 game. Jim, isn't it amazing when Michigan can keep this game to a 19-foot 9-inch game inside that three-point line? It's all there.
What's going on, Josh?
What's up, sir?
Not much, man. I'm enjoying this day off, Columbus Day. We're one day out from when we usually record, but it's been a beautiful day here, and took some time to go hiking today.
Ugh.
Yeah, it sounded like a great idea until one of our dogs almost jumped off one of the cliffs, and I think I might have given my wife a heart attack at one point.
God, if I was guaranteed for my dog to jump off a cliff, I'd go hiking right now. That son of a bitch is out of control. Hey,
Yeah, that
I
wouldn't
feel
work
like
for
we
me.
haven't been together in a while. I feel like we haven't done this in a while because the last one was the other end, right?
I know, yeah, but it was exciting to hear. I really enjoyed that. Enjoyed learning a little bit about 19-9, a little more about it, hearing some of the backstory. I'm excited to hear you guys together again. And his business angle is really kind of different take on what you guys are doing.
Yeah, that's because he's like a real business person, and I'm just me.
You play one on TV.
Yeah, I'm just the dumbass teacher. So there's a little yin and yang there, but it works for us. So yeah, it was a lot of fun having him on, and we'll get him back on and talk more stuff because we were laughing after it was over about we just kept going about the mall kiosk, and we're thinking that our time at Castleton Mall could be one. It could be a series of blogs. I mean, we could literally talk about that kiosk for another hour easy, and we thought about bringing in some of the players from the kiosk, some of the people we had working, because we started getting texts from some of the guys that worked it from us with some hilarious stories, and I'd forgotten even some of them even worked. You know, it was just some buddies that would like pitch in and work a couple nights here and there, and
Sure.
we were getting flooded with that stuff. So yeah, it was fun, man. We're gonna do it again.
We just need pictures of the kiosk from your basement too.
What do you mean?
You said it. You said that the pieces of it are still in your basement.
Oh yeah. No, it's right outside my basement. That's what threw me off. Yeah, my kids like used it as a fort.
Yeah.
It's still down there. It's so damn heavy. It's probably never gonna leave that spot.
The next owners will inherit it, huh?
Hey, why don't you tell the people how excited I was about our new intro?
I'm really excited.
How many times I text you when I found that?
Well, the best part was I was so excited I put it together, and then you're like, no, you got to hold off because I got to tell the story. So I want you to tell the story about how you discovered it.
No, I was down here working the Yukon launch, and so just kind of stay on brand. I like to watch a lot of old YouTube games, which we're getting ready to get into one with our HVS Classic today. But and that's where this one came from, actually. But I was watching a game, and I was watching actually the one that we're going to talk about, the Arkansas versus Kentucky, and it was the 95 SEC Championship. But time kind of got away from me, and I was down here getting the Yukon stuff ready and shipped out to all the orders and stuff that were coming in. And I just happened to have on the North Carolina-Michigan 1993 Final Four game. Or no, it wasn't. Was it North Carolina? Or was it? No, it was the Kentucky one, wasn't it?
Right.
Do you remember? I think it was Kentucky. It wasn't the
think you're
national championship. Yeah, it wasn't the national championship. It was Kentucky. It was a Final Four game, which was another instant classic. And Billy Packer said like 3 times in a 2.5 minute span something about it becoming a 19-9 game, and then he was like 19 feet 9 inches, and you know, that's us. That's our name. That's where it came from. But I had no idea Billy Packer was so passionate about it, man.
Yeah.
So then I blew you up through text like, dude, we got it. We got a new intro. Forget Don Fisher, even though we love Don Fisher. No offense. I'm like, this is perfect. So, anyways, yeah, I was way too fired up about that.
Have no fear. I'll find a way to hook fish in there again.
Well, the other part of that too was I miss Billy Packer. Like I love Billy Packer. I love how many Final Fours did he call?
Man,
consecutive.
forever.
I mean, it was up.
He's
it was
like the voice of the Final Four.
I know. I miss that. No offense to Jim Nance and Grant Hill, I don't like them.
Yeah,
I
just
like
different.
them. Yeah, I love Grant Hill, obviously, and Jim Nance is a Hall of Famer, obviously, but Jim Nance is for the Masters to me.
Yeah,
and, even though he's worked a ton of Final Fours and stuff, but Billy Packer was the man, so it was cool to get him on there.
No doubt. Well, also in the interim, we got to contribute to a different blog called The Mid-Range. So I don't know if you want to explain a little bit about how that came to be.
Yeah, I found these guys called The Mid-Range, and this JD and Carter are their names, two guys, and I kind of like what they did. I remember I called you or sent you I think I sent you an email with a link in it when I found it, and I'm not even sure how I found them, but they're kind of just getting started. And the way that they wrote, I felt like was better than what we write. So that's where it started. Like, and since we started this pod, both of us would tell you that we've kind of neglected the blog to an extent. And now we got some writers that are writing for us and do good work and stuff too. And we try to keep that, the HVS blog up on the 99.com page. Going, and there's some stuff up there, some new stuff up there that I posted today. But I
was gonna say the Chucker is going strong.
Yeah, he is. The Chucker's been coming through pretty good. So I don't know. I read the Mid-Range. I read a couple of their previous posts and just kind of reached out to them. I like to do that and ask them if they wanted to collaborate on something. So they did, and we have it up. We have it up on our site, which is 99.com, which you guys probably know, and it's under the HVS tab. And then they have it up on the midrange.co, just CO on that. And it's the midrange.co. And they have a lot of other of their blogs up, and you can sign up for their newsletter and that type of stuff too. So we had a lot of fun with that. And we're going to try to get those guys on one of these, the podcast too. So that'll be a lot of fun because they have a unique way of looking at stuff, and it kind of gelled with what we were talking about and doing and stuff too. So I thought it was a lot of fun. What did you think?
I liked it a lot. Reading through it, you can tell that they've done it a lot more. And I think that the rhythm of their writing is just funnier than I was able to bring. It was fun to participate though, and I love the topic, talking about fashion, because it's something I think that's so unique to basketball, and it just comes through in everyone's breakdown of basketball styles throughout the different time periods.
I thought my part gelled perfectly with them though.
It was. Yours was probably better.
I'm messing with you, man. I'm just kidding. No, those guys. That's why I reached out though, because they're a little bit more fluid with it, and we kind of type like we talk and stuff, and those guys are pretty skilled at what they did. So again, they're just kind of getting started out. So go give them a follow. I know they're on Twitter at the Mid-Range. And then I don't think that they have an Instagram page, or if they did, I couldn't find it to link it. So all you Twitter fans out there, you can hop on Twitter. I'm more of an Instagram guy, though.
Yep.
So, all right. That catches us up, man. So what are we getting into now? A little HVS Classic?
I know. So where did you get the ideas for this? Because when you pitched it to me, I know what I immediately thought of, but I was just curious how you thought this through, or what came to you when you started with this idea.
Well, are you talking about which game I picked or just the overall concept?
Both.
Yeah, just the overall concept. I always thought it'd be fun to go back. I've watched and rewatched and watched again just several old games just because I'm a basketball idiot, basically, and watched a ton of VHS tapes through the years, and I'm looking at some in the studio right now that I have down. I used to buy all of those the championship videos, and I didn't even care who won the championship. I would just do it because it did such a good job of recapping all the tournament games and things like that. So I would buy those, or my mom and dad would buy those for me every year, and I would just wear those tapes out. So I love rewatching basketball games and basketball highlights from the past. So I thought it would be cool because I know that you sharing that some too, and I thought it'd just be cool to kind of bring some of those classics back up and just talk about some of the players and the coaches maybe that have been forgotten a little bit. From the past, and just I don't really want to get into like breaking down the game, and at the 7:47 mark, they switched to a 2-3 zone. Like, I don't really care too much about that, but just kind of general overall themes and talking about some players that, like I said, maybe been forgotten, coaching styles and some of the personalities in the game. I feel like that's maybe a little bit of what college basketball is missing. Is I don't feel like we have the personalities in the game that we once had. And so that's what makes it a lot of fun for me to go back and watch some of these old games.
Yeah, I think that hits it right on the nose. So I'm going to shout out The Ringer again. I know that's kind of a theme for me, but they do a series on just cinematic movies called The Rewatchables. And they do something similar where they go through different categories and then break down the film without doing it beat by beat. And then One Shining Podcast, which is no more, tried to do something with it, but they did kind of the version that you were saying we're not going to do, where they went for like 2.5 hours and broke down every minute of the game, it felt like. And it was just a little bit too much for me.
Right. And I think we could do that, but I started to almost kind of do that in the first half of watching this game, and then I got extremely bored. I'm like, nobody's going to find this interesting, listening to me talk about this stuff. So I kind of wanted to just focus on a few things like the coaching matchup, some of the players that were in the game, the fans, because I thought the fans were incredible during this game. ESPN2, that was early ESPN2, so I'd love to get in on that a little bit, and then kind of break down a little bit of what happened and the Cats' big comeback there. So we can get started when you're ready, sir.
All right, man. Where do you want to start?
Let's start with ESPN2. Did you love those graphics?
Oh my God! Well, tell me what you thought of when you first saw those, because I've got something that hit me like immediately.
Like the thing that I remembered the most about ESPN2, and it could be completely wrong, but this is how I remember when I saw those graphics. It took me back to when ESPN2 was greenlit. But it was greenlit as like the alternative sports network.
Yes.
And then so it was like going to be like skateboarding and snowboarding and that type of shit.
Yeah.
And so like then they just realized, okay, actually people just want to watch more games of the popular sports, you know, at that time. And I know that they've had like tons of success with the X Games, and times have changed and they've done a great job with that stuff. Not saying anything against that. My son skateboards and all that stuff. It's cool. I love that stuff. But at that time it was supposed to be like this young, new, cutting edge, and the graphics just scream that at you from the very, very jump. And I'm like, those are not traditional basketball graphics up there. Like, it was just this funny, to me, it was just this funny blend of extreme sports meets college basketball.
I immediately thought of MTV from that time. Like, I thought, did they watch MTV and steal the scripts straight from the Real World season? Because that looked exactly like what MTV was doing at the time. I was almost blown away watching the graphic packages and just thinking, like, what were the sports fans, the SEC championship fans were watching that? Because I was blown away that they had the SEC championship on there too.
I know.
Like, would that ever happen now?
They had the number 5 team versus the number 3 team in the nation in the SEC championship, and their microphones just had like that crazy font 2 on there. Didn't you?
I know. I was dying at the intros. I was like, oh my God, what is happening right now?
There's like a cutaway, like pretty soon, or pretty much towards the beginning, a cutaway, and I guess they used some CBS footage or something. And in the cutaway graphic, like down at the bottom, in that stupid, crazy, like extreme sports font, it just says "Thanks CBS," and it's all lowercase.
Yeah, like they'd done it before. Yeah.
Like, what? Like, that's how I type like text.
Oh, I know. It would have been emojis if ESPN came out today.
No doubt, but that was awesome, and
Yeah.
I know I've told the story before, but when ESPN2, I don't even know if Evansville had that game because when
Might not
ESPN2
have.
came out, you had to pay extra to the cable company to get it in a package or whatever, which was kind of foreign at that time, if I remember right. And so I would listen to like the Duke. I remember they had the Duke Carolina game. I know I've told this story before, but I like just listened to it through the squiggly lines or whatever. I just had the volume up so I could just hear what was going on. So I'm pretty sure that this '95 SEC championship game probably wasn't even broadcast in Evansville, which probably pissed a ton of people off because there's a lot of Kentucky fans
No
down
doubt.
here.
Well, yeah, I'm sure they were blown away when they saw it was on ESPN too. I still get mad when things today are on like the online network, like BTN to go or something like that for the IU
Yeah.
games. I'm like, come on, what
Well,
are
that
we
was
doing
kind of how
right
the
now?
Big Ten Network started too. Remember, not a ton of people
Yeah.
had that. I know UVerse had it, and we got it maybe a week before basketball season started for the IU games up in Indy, and and it was like the most clutch play that we had ever made. Like we were literally high fiving each other when it got installed, so we had it. But I mean, up until that point, it was one of those things, probably like ESPN2 was, but I was too young. Where it was like games on ESPN2, like shit, we gotta find a bar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you just like, and that's kind of cool. Like I kind of miss that a little bit too. You know, where it's we got to find somewhere. Like I've gone around Indy before when we've been out when Big Ten Network first started, trying to find a bar that had the Big Ten Network, and being disappointed when we walked in and
Right.
ended up in some pretty ghetto ass places that had that happened to have Big Ten Network just to watch a game. So that's like also very retro, right? To go to a bar to watch a game because you don't have that channel at home.
No doubt. I did that in California when I was first out there because I didn't have cable television, and it was a little bit before like the cord cutting was advanced enough to like get live sports. So it definitely was showing up at some places to watch some of the games.
Let me ask you this. Let's move away from ESPN2 and let's get into the coaches a little bit because you had two legendary Hall of Famers, a younger Rick Pitino, and then you had Nolan Richardson at Arkansas. What did you kind of pick up from, or was there anything that you want to say about that coaching matchup, or anything that surprised you throughout the game that you saw from either one of them?
Well, I mean, I think watching those two coaches together was amazing because they've got such similar styles, right? You got the 40 minutes of hell, and you got Rick Pitino's just pressing, kind of
press and deflect, right?
Yes, just craziness out there. So those two together were just a wild matchup. Now on the bench, they're, I think, super different. Nolan Richardson just sitting there sweating a lot, and Rick Pitino on their side with his Armani suit. But I do have to shout out at one point, Rick gets pretty upset, rips off the Armani suit, and throws it into the second row. I thought that was a pretty fun moment during the game. But both amazing coaches.
That's when you know he's getting paid too much, when he doesn't care about an Armani suit.
Right.
But
they said the I think it was Packer on the call that was talking about the guy who caught it was apparently one of the equipment people who had been there for like 35 years. So he was prepped to catch that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's funny that you mentioned what you said with them because I have two notes written down. I have Rick Pitino, press and deflect, and I have Nolan Richardson, 40 minutes of hell.
Yeah.
And so that was like my two. But what made that game so entertaining was I caught myself several times, like Corey Beck or somebody would get a steal, go the length of the floor, lay it in, and then turn around and just find, Tony Delk to hound or Jeff Shepard to hound. And then everybody picked up full court. Then Kentucky would score, and Walter McCarty would immediately run to the inbounder and start trying to get a deflection. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, God, dog, how in shape do these dudes have to be going this whole time? Because they didn't necessarily go super deep in their bench. Both of them had a good bench, and they went into it. But those guys like Beck and McCarty and Big Nasty, Corliss Williamson, I mean, they played a lot of minutes out there.
Well, I think Kentucky was way deeper. I mean, they were prepped to do it because they even were like bringing Antoine Walker off the bench. They had Jarrett Prickett still, Andre Riddick.
Well, remember
Scott Padgett was on that team.
They were only 1 year away from, being arguably the greatest college team of all time. So that 96 UK team, it gets mentioned because then they bring in Ron Mercer and Derek Anderson and some of those guys that were freshmen coming in 96 to join the majority of that team that we watched in this game. So you're adding some pros, a couple more pros to that list that we saw out there too. And it's funny you mentioned Antoine Walker coming off the bench, and he was just a freshman, and he was the best player on the floor, in my opinion, throughout that game.
I don't think there's any doubt. I thought he was incredible the whole game, and he was just on a different level. Like, he looked like a different level of player. But all the Kentucky team in general, I can't believe they weren't better that year, because they just look like a pro team out. They're huge.
Well, how do you want them to be better? I mean, they were SEC champs, regular season and tournament.
Wow.
And they went to the Elite Eight just because they didn't make a Final Four. You think?
Yeah, I mean that.
But anything can happen in the tournament. That's why it's March Madness.
I know. It's just like a team with that much talent. Just seems like it's inevitable. It just shows how hard it is.
Well, it's funny because I watch these games now, looking back from the past. And so some of the guys, we mentioned the majority of them, but you had Walter McCarty, Corey Beck, Scotty Thurman, Tony Dowd, Corliss Williamson. And then you had Antoine Walker as a freshman. But you look at the names that were on those rosters, and you had a lot of pros, a lot of really, really good college players, a lot of All-Americans, some Player of the Year candidates, or at least Conference Player of the Year candidates or winners in there. But then you had Antoine Walker, and even though he was a freshman, he was a multi-NBA All-Star, and he's the only one, right? Out of all those guys that played at that time, he was the one that went on to become an NBA All-Star. And as you're watching the game, having hindsight now, 25 years later, you're saying like, okay, there's the difference between really good college players and the difference between a dude that's going to go on to be a 5-time, 6-time, whatever he was, NBA All-Star. Right. And that's really crazy for me to look back and kind of see, because when you're watching the game, all of us would have took a Scotty Thurman ahead of Antoine Walker for that game, that stage, that time in their lives. You know what I mean? And
did he even play in the NBA?
Thurman comes out early and doesn't get drafted, from what I remember anyways.
I don't think he did.
It's just different. You and I talk about that all the time, how those pros, the all-stars and the greats just kind of move differently, right?
Yep.
That was my lead in to you to mention Ray Allen again, and you didn't take it. Like, we haven't. I don't think. Maybe only me and the one with Loomer last episode was the only time we haven't mentioned Ray Allen, and that was the softball to you to say.
No, you could have recapped the UConn
Ray
shorts.
Allen moved to this page. Like, that was it, man. You blew it.
I know. Drop the ball. Turnover.
What else with players? Who? I had a question for you. Corliss Williamson, right? Big nasty, two or 3-time All-American at Arkansas. I think he was SEC Player of the Year, at least one of those years too. National champion, obviously. What would he look like in today's game? What would he be? Because I marveled at him during this game, like watching him work the paint, and I'm like, he doesn't even look big out there.
No, I don't think he was. I don't think he was that big.
No, he wasn't. That's what I'm saying. He was undersized, but he was just a brute in there. So what does his game look like? What does Corliss Williamson look like if he's let's call him a junior at Arkansas this year? What's his game look like?
I mean, maybe he looks like Julius Randle if that's best case scenario, but he might be sort of like Noah Vonleh, guy that can do some things but never really is able to pan out. And that was kind of his NBA career anyways. He's just a tweener because of his athleticism. He's such a bruiser, and he's a good role player, but he's not athletic enough to really excel at the NBA level. But he's an awesome college player. Like, he just
I
knows
know.
how
Why
to
did
use
it
his
work
body.
so well in college for him though? Like what?
It's size.
Why?
Yeah, I think it's just size. I mean, he's 6'7", probably with a decent wingspan, and that works in the college game where guys aren't as athletic or as long, and then you get to the NBA and they're longer and more athletic, and you just can't use those same skills.
And not really a shooter, right? I mean, that's what I was kind of I don't know. That's what I was kind of maybe hinting at, throwing it over to you was if he's out now, is he a 3-point threat? Is he a shooter? Like, does he float around the perimeter, and is he like a great rebounding three?
I don't know if you could. I don't know if you could be a 4 in college basketball and not shoot threes anymore, let alone in the NBA. I really don't.
I know the game has completely changed.
Completely
changed. You know who my favorite player?
We'll see with IU this year. They're going to try it, right? They don't really have their 4-5 aren't really shooters.
I don't know, man. I don't really pay attention until the season starts.
Okay.
To be honest. Let me talk about my favorite player in this game for a minute.
Okay, good. Get to it.
Corey Beck. What did you think of Corey Beck?
Okay, so this will pivot to a couple of things that I like, because I love the announcers in the game. And one of the things they said, they throw out this stat and mention him as a guy who led the SEC in steals. And I think that pretty much any year, if you pick the guy that led the SEC in steals, going to be a pretty solid player.
Yeah. And then the other thing that they say was he was the second leading rebounder on their team. Did you catch that?
I didn't hear that, but it doesn't surprise me.
It was either he was the second overall leading rebounder on the team, or he was either 1 or 2 offensive rebounder on that Arkansas team at the point guard position. And he's not a big like Penny Hardaway, Magic Johnson point guard. He's you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, so he's like almost five a game.
That guy was, I don't know. I have no idea. Didn't look it up, and I don't think that they said. But that dude, honestly, this is going to be a big statement from me here, Meyer. If you're ready for this,
I'm ready. I'm holding on.
My favorite college point guard of all time. Now I know I didn't pick him on
Corey Beck.
Like, yeah, point blank. Like, love that dude. That guy was. So Williamson and Thurman got the pub, and I remember this even when I was 14, 15 years old watching those dudes play, is I never thought he got the credit that he deserved, but he was the heart and soul. I mean, the announcers say that, and that's cliche as hell, but he was 40 minutes of hell. Without him, he was the guy that cut the head off the snake of the opponent every time. And then he was just gritty. He could finish at the rim, wasn't a great shooter, got in there and rebound. He, in some of his passing, I'm going to go like really old school. I'm going to sound like an old man here, like yelling at kids to get off my lawn. But I don't care. His entry passes into the post were a thing of beauty. Like I was sitting there like smiling watching that guy feed the post, because he understood how to do it. He understood angles. He understood the correct pass to make. Over top of the head, bounce pass, one dribble down to the baseline entry, touch passes into the post. He set that whole offense up just effortlessly and flawlessly, and then he was the head of their defense. And I can't say enough about Corey Beck and his passing into the post, which is a big, big sticking point with me, because I watch kids pass now, and it's not even kids. People can't feed the post in college. We'll watch some games this year together, and I'll point it out to you every time. The passing into the post is god-awful, and it pisses me off.
Yeah.
Rant.
Well, and it could be just the way the defenses are, too, that they pack in the post and dare people to shoot. But I know what you mean.
If there was a guy open in the post, Meyer, find a way to throw the damn ball to him. It's not that hard. I mean, he's open, he has position, and we can't feed him because we don't know the proper pass to make.
It could be just passing in general, too. I think that there's just such an emphasis on scoring. Nobody gets glory for passing. I mean, the fact that you remember Corey Beck and that I was surprised that was your pick. It just kind of demonstrates, right? If he had scored 15 points a game, he probably would have been more memorable.
I bet the Arkansas fan base remembers him very vividly and in a great light too.
Well, they probably won the championship because of him too. So
there's no doubt about
something
it.
to be said there.
I want to go back because I do want to watch. I want to watch both of the national championship games with Arkansas. So I want to watch. I watched that Duke one not that long ago because I want to watch Grant Hill highlights. But I was watching it just kind of, I don't know, kind of half watching it, half not, and watching Grant Hill mostly. But I do want to watch that game again, and I want to watch how UCLA and Ed O'Bannon beat them in '95 too, because I really want to. I really want to see Toby Bailey too, because I love that dude from back in the day.
He was a stud then. Yeah.
Yeah, he really was. So I feel like with these HVS classics, I could come back to Arkansas quite a bit, and Kentucky too. I mean,
almost the team of the decade, right? If they had won those 2 championships, they would have been kind of the team of the decade.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
Who else would have been in that discussion? Kentucky probably
team
would have been, right? Because you had Kentucky being in the Final Four in '93, winning it in '96, an Elite Eight in '95.
Yep.
And then they win again in '98, right?
Yep.
Because that's when they beat Utah. So I mean, it would be right there with Kentucky. The interesting thing is both of those teams are from the SEC. And when we talk about the SEC nowadays, we maybe not solely, but it's mostly football. And it probably was back then too. But those Kentucky and Arkansas and LSU teams from back in those days were awesome. And I mean, Kentucky's traditionally awesome too. I'd love to see Arkansas kind of get back to that level too, and give Kentucky a true rival in the SEC. You have Tennessee kind of coming up now, and some other teams, hovering around there, and LSU is pretty good, but Kentucky
Georgia we'll see about.
What's that?
Georgia, maybe.
Oh yeah, a little cream ball down there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, they got the recruiting going, that's for sure. But yeah, it would be fun to see a traditional rival again with Kentucky, which brings me to my next point was the fans. I don't think that any fan base from the basketball side of things can rival Kentucky in the SEC except Arkansas. Those fans bring it, man.
Yeah, especially at this time, they were just, it seemed like salivating. And I think the announcers, again, had it right on here. They said the only thing better might have been watching one of the dream teams. They were talking about this game in particular, and I agree. Like the brand of basketball that was played in this game was incredible, and the fans were just ravenous for both teams. They were just into it, and it was great. They loved the swings, never a quiet moment.
Yeah, from the minute that the YouTube video clicks on, there's just that hovering buzz the whole time, and you really, if you were just listening to the game, you would have no idea that Arkansas went up huge, and then Kentucky came back, and then it was nip tuck. You know what I mean? It was just like there was cheering, and there was this buzz the entire game, and so it really made it sound like it was even, which is crazy because we all know how well Kentucky fans travel and how crazy they are about their basketball. It says something about the Arkansas fan base and the way that they traveled, and how crazy they were about their team too, because they were every bit as loud as the Kentucky fans. So when Arkansas makes that big run in the first half and jumps on them, it's going bananas in there. And then when Kentucky starts to claw back and makes their run to get back in the game and it's going down the stretch, it's still crazy in there. And then when you had both sides of it as it was going back and forth down the stretch, it was like at a different level crazy in there. So it was the fans brought it, man, that game, and that's what made watching it again a lot of fun too.
No doubt. They were fun throughout it. And I think it has to be that this Arkansas team, right, is the most memorable for them in history. Those guys are just iconic. I mean, for college basketball overall in general, let alone Arkansas basketball.
Yeah, for sure. And they had a team, I think, I want to say 78 that made it to the Final Four. I could be off on a year or so on that. But It was Sidney Moncrief, so it was in the
Okay.
70s that they made it to the Final Four. But yeah, they didn't have the sustained success that those Nolan Richardson teams have. Oh, and getting back to Nolan Richardson for a minute too, because I don't think I ever weighed in on the coaching stuff. Was he was way more calm than what I remembered him being in my head. And his demeanor was like pretty relaxed during that whole game. I don't know what I know that you commented on that a little bit, and Pitino, was the classic Pitino New York style, coaching and getting into the refs a little bit, which I also love. But I only saw like Richardson maybe get upset one time, and I think he was upset with a player not like picking his man up quick enough or something like that. So he was a lot more calm and collected than I remembered.
Agreed. No, it must just been the sweat that makes him seem more upset than he was.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. So, anyways, to the game, we'll kind of wrap it up. How the hell did Arkansas lose? Explain that to me.
I don't know. I think it was just Kentucky started hitting threes. That helped. And then you got to give it to Antoine Walker. To me, I just thought that he provided that change of pace or just that ability to sustain the pace that Arkansas just couldn't manage. I mean, they were on fire at the beginning of the game. Scotty Thurman was hitting everything he threw up, and he cooled off a little bit. And then Walker just kind of stepped in there and leveled Kentucky out and seemed to carry them.
So this is what happens. I'm gonna read my notes from what happened with a minute 30 left. So we started a minute 37. Here's the string of plays. How I wrote it down, which kind of illustrates to you how crazy the ending of this game was. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
All right, so Arkansas is up 7 with a minute 37 left. I'll repeat that. Up 7 with a minute 37. But you had Corliss Williamson who fouls out 5 seconds after that. So they cut it to, I think, 5 there on that foul, maybe 6. There's a turnover on the inbounds, then a Pope tip in off a Walker miss, so the lead is 4. McDaniel gets fouled by Shepard. Shepard fouls out. McDaniel has made 27 of his last 32 free throws, misses both.
Oof.
Okay, you got a Walker miss, Arkansas rebound, McDaniel to the line again. This time he makes both, so it's 93-87 now with 50 seconds left. Delk 3 cuts that to 93-90 with 37 seconds left. Beck to the line, misses both. So Corey Beck gets fouled, misses both. I told you he wasn't a great
Your
shooter.
boy.
I know it. I didn't say he was a good shooter. Antoine Walker gets a lay-in, cuts it to 1. UK gets a steal off the press, foul on Arkansas. You have a 1-point game with Epps going to the line with 19 seconds left. Makes the first tie game, makes the second UK by 1. Arkansas comes down, Thurman misses a 3 short, and UK wins. That's all in a minute and 37 seconds.
It was wild. It was a wild ending. I mean, this game, start to finish, was a blast because Razorbacks jump out early. They're throwing in every 3 that they put up, and then Kentucky comes back hitting threes. And like I said, Walker was awesome. Pitino was into it the whole game, even though Richardson wasn't as demonstrative as Pitino. He definitely was in control of the game and like had his style. His guys were playing that Arkansas style the whole game. Clint McDaniel, he was the one actually that led the SEC in steals, but Corey Beck, it just stuck in my mind as that defensive hawk.
Yeah.
Even if he didn't lead it in steals, I mean, that dude was on-ball defender, was unbelievable. Just
McDaniel probably made his living picking off passes that Corey Beck, put the pressure on
forced
people.
Forced him into.
Yeah, shooting passing lanes and that type of stuff too. So
no doubt.
I did think it was interesting that I didn't know this because I didn't do any research. Like I normally don't do any research for these things, but as they were talking on YouTube, the announcers are on the broadcast. I didn't know that Nolan Richardson didn't win the SEC championship in '94, and then we watched the '95 one and he didn't win. And I was kind of surprised by that. I guess I just assumed that he had won it in '94 when they won the national championship. And then obviously we watched him give it away in '95. And I don't know if he ever won one. which would be shocking to me. You know what I mean? If I told you beforehand that Nolan Richardson never won an SEC championship, you would probably say that was false, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have believed it.
Right, exactly. So, all right, so that's kind of how we're going to wrap up, unless you have anything else, Meyer. That's how we're going to kind of do these HVS Classics, just more of a general discussion, more so than going through play-by-play and breaking down everything. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we'll bring those back from time to time too.
Yeah, I love doing this. I think I'm going to jump offline here and get back on eBay. There was a Razorbacks championship ring on there. I need to get back to bidding on that.
You realize we're bidding against each other, right?
Dang it. All right, we'll figure that out.
We need to consolidate our funds, buddy.
That's right.
And then like 6 months of the year you'll have it, 6 months of the year I'll have it. Or we'll put it down here in the studio.
We're gonna put it right next to Big Dog's Player of the Year championship trophy.
Yeah. I gotta get back into Mackie and get my hands on that one somehow.
Yeah, we need that.
That would look good down here.
Look excellent.
All right, well, until next time, guys, we appreciate you guys listening, and remember to subscribe. Remember to give us reviews. It's kind of how we move up the ranks in the podcast world, wherever you guys are listening, or however, or what platform you guys are listening to us on. We would greatly appreciate that.
Perfect, man. 5 stars only.
All right. See you guys.
See ya. Thank you for listening to the 19.9 podcast with HVS, the High Volume Shooters. For more information, check out the blog at 19.9.com under HVS. And while you're there, do yourself a favor and pick up some retro college shorts. Till next time.